Okay, the images you're seeing on the screen right now are the search results of 100,000 people gathered in one place. It looks crazy, isn't it? I can only imagine how it would feel when you're in a place with these many people united and cheering for your team. It must be an incredible feeling, no doubt. So my point is, are you aware about the sheer number of people that famous football matches have witnessed in the past? I'm sure you'll be quite shocked to hear the attendances of some matches in this list. But first, let us give some perspective to this discussion. I'm sure you guys must be aware of Tomorrowland. It is one of the most famous electronic music festivals out there, and fans from around the world come to be a part of it. And although the event takes place on a huge place with different stages for different artists, but the main stage can have around 70,000 people at a time, which is a huge number. And you're seeing the images of how that looks like. And this image is from the last year's Champions League final that City won. It saw 71,412 people turn up to the Ataturk Olympic Stadium in Istanbul. In fact, just a year before that, the Champions League final was played between two of the most famous teams in Real Madrid and Liverpool, and the attendance there was 75,000 people. And if that match is not famous enough, the World Cup final was the most famous football match in our recent memory, and a staggering 88,966 people were present at Lusail Stadium of Qatar to watch that match. And although these numbers are huge, but still, they won't come under top 10 or even top 20 football matches with most spectators on the ground. So let's see which matches were able to pull most football fans into the stadium and very briefly understand the story behind those matches. So without any further ado, I'll start the video. So let's begin with number 15. The 15th highest attendance recorded in a match was of more than 109,000 people. To be exact, 1,09,318 people attended this match. It happened in 2014, and you'd be surprised to know that it was a pre-season friendly between Manchester United and Real Madrid, and the venue was Michigan Stadium of USA. I myself was surprised to know that one of the highest attended match is from the USA. But again, United and Real Madrid have this immense fan following globally and can attract huge numbers. Manchester United won that match with 3-1, but the biggest surprise for me was the fact that this was the most attended football match in the 21st century. Not even the World Cup final comes close. Now can you believe that? Now at number 14, we have Mexico versus Brazil. The match was played in 1999 at Estadio Azteca of Mexico, which is the 8th biggest football stadium in the world, and 110,000 supporters came to watch Mexico lift their first trophy. Yes, it was the final of the Confederation Cup, a tournament organized by FIFA with 8 teams representing all 6 continents. Mexico were the host and were able to beat Brazil, who reached the World Cup final the previous year. The scoreline was 4-3. At number 13, it's a classic Scottish rivalry between Rangers and Celtic in 1939 at the Ibrox Stadium, and more than 118,500 supporters came in to watch that match. There are very few rivalries in football which is as intense as Rangers versus Celtic. They call it the Old Firm Derby. We can only imagine the atmosphere of those old days. In a season where Rangers will go on to win the title 11 points clear of their city rival Celtic, this was a heated match, which Rangers won in the end by 2-1. At number 12, we have an all-English affair between Bolton Wanderers and West Ham United, and there are some crazy facts about this match. First up, this was the FA Cup final of 1923, which took place at the original Wembley Stadium, which used to look like this at that time. Now understand this, back in the time, FA Cup was the biggest trophy in English football. It still holds a massive value, but now it's nothing compared to the way the fans and the teams used to treat this competition back then. Now add to that the fact that this was the first FA Cup final happening at the Wembley Stadium. So what's the crazy part? Well, more than 300,000 people turned up at the ground to watch this match. And yes, this actually happened. Football was crazy back then. Anyways, this caused a spillage of spectators onto the pitch, who then were pushed away from the stadium by the policemen on horseback, because of which this game was known as the White Horse Final. And the final recorded attendance of the spectators present at the stadium was 126,000 people, and the game was won by Balton by 2-0. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to like it. And now moving on to number 11. Now 11th highest attendance recorded on a football match was between Real Madrid and Eintracht Frankfurt. Remember when Real Madrid won 5 Champions League finals, which was known as European Cup back in the day? This was the 5th of them. This time the Spanish giants met the German powerhouse, and they were too much for them, as the scoreline was 7-3 in Real Madrid's favor. Di Stefano scored 3 and Ferenc Puskás scored 4 goals, and 127,621 people came to see this match. The stadium was Hampden Park of Glasgow, Scotland, and the 1960 European Cup final held the record of the highest attended and the most goals scored in a European Cup final game. Now for number 10, we'll have to go 4 years back. The match was between Real Madrid and AC Milan, and it was the same competition but not the final. At the inaugural competition of the European Cup in 1956, Real Madrid had to beat AC Milan over 2 legs to earn a place in the final, and this match, the first leg of semi-final, was played at the Santiago Bernabeu, which recorded an attendance of 129,700 people. Real Madrid won this fixture by 4 goals to 2, and although AC Milan won the reverse fixture, but Madrid progressed to the final on aggregate. Now the 9th highest attendance recorded in a football match is the biggest surprise on the list. Yes, the match was between East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, and these teams are from India. Now this match happened at the Salt Lake Stadium, Kolkata, India in 1997, and 131,781 spectators came to attend this match. The reason why such a high number of people turned up was because East Bengal and Mohun Bagan share a heated rivalry, and it was the semi-final of the Federation Cup, which was the biggest football competition in India. East Bengal won the match by 4 goals to 1, and their star striker Baichung Bhutia scored a hat-trick. You would be surprised to know that this match holds the record for the most attended sporting event in Asia. Now for number 8, we are going to Portugal this time. The match was between the arch rivals Benfica and FC Porto, which happened in 1987 at Benfica's home ground Estádio da Luz. The staggering number of supporters came to attend the O Clásico was 135,000 people, which again is the highest attendance for a sporting event in Portugal. Now this was a league game alright, but it held importance because Benfica would go on to win the league by just 3 points ahead of Porto. They just lost 1 game in the whole campaign, and if Porto were able to beat them in this game, the story would have been different. But Benfica won the game by 3 goals to 1 thanks to a hat-trick scored by Rui Eguas. At number 7, we had 2 iconic teams from Britain. The match was between Celtic and Leeds United. The year was 1970 and both teams were fighting to book their place at the European Cup final. Leeds United were heavy favourites going into the tie, and the first leg happened at their home ground, but Celtic beat them by 1 goal to 0 at Ellen Road. And now for the second leg, Leeds had to travel to Hampden Park, and by now you can guess that they faced a mammoth number of away fans at Celtic's home ground. 136,500 people were present at Hampden Park to support Celtic, and they beat Leeds United with a scoreline of 2 goals to 1. They would go on to face Feyenoord in the final, which they happened to lose, but Celtic holds the record for the highest attendance in a European competition, which I think is unlikely to ever be broken. At number 6, we have a second meeting between 2 national teams. It was Brazil vs Sweden at 1950 World Cup. This match happened at the Maracanã Stadium in Brazil, which was specifically built for this tournament and this match, which was the first match of World Cup finals against Sweden, which Brazil managed to beat them by a staggering 7 goals to 1. 138,900 people saw Brazil annihilating Sweden, with their forward Edemir scoring 4 goals in this match. Now get used to this tournament and this venue, because you will be hearing it a few more times in this video. And we have the same entries at number 5. This time the match was between Brazil and Yugoslavia. This was their final match of the group stages. The European nation have won both of their matches so far and just needed a draw to avoid an incredible upset. 142,500 people travelled to Rio de Janeiro's Macarana Stadium to watch this match, and the host nation were able to get the job done with a relatively comfortable scoreline of 2-0, with goals coming from Edemir and Zizinho. For number 4, we travel back to Scotland for a match between Celtic and Aberdeen. The venue again was Hampden Park, and I was intrigued to know that within a week, the stadium managed to record 2 of the 4 biggest attendances in football history, the second of which is this match. It was the Scottish Cup final of 1937, and this match brought over 147,000 spectators onto the ground. Now Celtic won their 15th Scottish Cup, beating Aberdeen by 2 goals to 1. But I cannot imagine what kind of legendary stadium this is and the pure footballing atmosphere this place has seen. Now we are getting into top 3, but we are staying at the same place for a match between Scotland and England. Just a week after the Scottish Cup final, even a bigger crowd descended to Hampden Park to watch their national side take on England. This competition was British Home Championship, which was contested between UK's 4 national teams, England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, and the competition was annulled in 1984. You won't believe that this match was only played for pride, because Wales before this match has already won the competition. Still, a staggering number of 149,000 people came to see their home team beat England by 3 goals to 1. At number 2, we have Brazil vs Spain, and for this match, we again return to the Maracanã Stadium at Brazil. It was the second match of the knockout stages of 1950 World Cup, and this match was supposed to be a huge contest because Spain up until this point has enjoyed a great tournament. They had won all 3 matches of their group stage and also held the famous Uruguay to a 2-2 draw. But when you're going to face Brazil of the old, especially at their home, it's never gonna be easy. And don't forget about the 150,000 spectators that came to Maracanã to watch this match. And as you can imagine, the host not only played well, they ran riot on the pitch. They recorded a scoreline of 6-1 with Edemir and Chico each each bagging braces, setting up a winner-takes-all final against the resilient Uruguay, which also happens to take the top spot in our list. Yes, the record for the highest attendance in a football match is of the 1950 World Cup final match between Brazil and Uruguay. And yes, the number of attendees vary in different reports, but it's between 174 and 200,000 people present at that point in the stadium. That also is a record for the highest attendance of a sporting event ever in an enclosed stadium. Can you even comprehend that? There are some countries which has lesser population than the number of people present at the Maracana Stadium on that day. Let that sink in. And now, let me tell you what happened in the match, because that's even more crazier. Unlike the other World Cup tournaments, which concludes with a one-off final, the 1950 World Cup winner was going to be determined by a final group stage, where 4 teams played in a round-robin format. If you want, I can make a whole video on this, but not going into much details right now. The Brazilian team topped that group, 1 point ahead of Uruguay going into the final. So the situation was such that Uruguay needed a win, while Brazil just needed to avoid defeat to become the world champions. And the match began in front of the highest crowd the world has ever seen gathered in a stadium. The first half went goalless, but Brazil took the lead shortly after the halftime thanks to a goal by Friaca. But midway through the second half, Juan Alberto Schiaffino equalized for Uruguay. The Brazilian team just needed to hold the visitors for a few more minutes. And just 11 minutes before the full time, the unthinkable happened. Alcides Gijia scored the decisive goal in the 79th minute and broke millions of Brazilian hearts in what would be one of the biggest upsets in the history of the sport. Yes, the Brazilian team, after taking a 1-point lead in the final rounds of the tournament, scoring the most goals in the competition, even leading the final game in front of a record attendance at their home, in the end lost the World Cup final just 11 minutes before the full time. I could have discussed this match for half an hour, but I can say the same for the other matches in this list. So respecting your time, I'll end this video right here. Please like the video if you found it interesting. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll respond to every single one of them. And subscribe to Football Ledger. And the next video will be on the topic you want to hear.